start with the word that we have, something that's relevant to our lives. Us. Who are we? What does it mean to be a human being? So let's take a look. How do we say human being in Hebrew? Who knows? Adam. Adam. Now I'm going to say something very interesting. By these three letters, I can tell you the most important things you need to know about who you are. Just like I can analyze H2O, and I can tell you the exact properties of water. How many hydrogen atoms, how many oxygen atoms there are. I can do the same thing with Adam. Let's take a look. We see three letters that compose the human being. That means when God created Adam, He took an Aleph, He took a Dalet, He took a Mem, the spiritual energies of these letters, and He formed a human being. So what do we see? First of all, we see an Aleph. What's interesting about an Aleph? Well, let's take a look at an Aleph for a moment. An Aleph happens to be numerically what? What is Aleph numerically? One. Good. If I take a look at an Aleph, I notice that it's actually made of two letters. I have a Yud, two Yuds, and a Vav. Help me along. What's the numerical value of Yud? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud. So I have Yud, numerical value of a Vav. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, 6. That's interesting because that happens to be the same numerical value as this word. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. God's name. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6, Hey is 5. You add it together, what do you get? 26. So we see in the structure of the Aleph the same numerical value as God's name. And that's very interesting. Why? Because Aleph, of course, is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So it makes sense that whenever you see an Aleph, it always has to do with something connecting with the supernal, with the divine, with Hashem. But let's see if it's consistent with all our rules. What is the first time an Aleph begins a root of a word in the Torah? Go with me. Bereshit, bara, Elokim. What does Elokim mean? It means God, Hashem. So we see the consistency. First time it begins a word in the Torah. It's an Aleph, it's Elokim. So the Aleph will always be something connected with God. Question, how do you pronounce an Aleph? Pronounce an Aleph for me. Give me the pronunciation of an Aleph. Well, let's see. A Beit is a B, a Gimel is a G, a Dalet is a D. Pronounce an Aleph? That's only if you have a Patak or a Chametz under it. Listen to how I pronounce an Aleph. Did you hear it? There's no sound. It's connected with something above this world. Something which you can't get your hands around. Something totally spiritual. Now, it's interesting. It happens to be that if I were to write out the letters Aleph, I'd write it, spell it like this. Aleph, Lamed, Pei. The Aleph is always going to be connected to Hashem and Hashem's oneness. Everything is from Hashem. Hashem Echad. Look at this. Numerical value of Aleph, 1. Numerical value of Lamed, 30. Numerical value of Pei, 80. Somebody added a cross. I'm going to walk around this way. Someone added a cross for me. 80 plus 30 plus 1 is 111. 1, 1, 1. Interesting. Everything going back to the ones, once again. So whenever we have that Aleph, it's going to be something to do with something above this world, something connected with God. That's what the Aleph always represents. And we can even take it a little deeper if you'd like. That if you spell the Aleph this way, it spells Aleph. But let me ask you a question. If Aleph always represents something about God, can we always know everything about God? Or does God always leave something over in our lives which is going to be a mystery, a wonder? True? I mean, we know that everything God does is good. Everything God does is based on love. Everything God does is based on kindness. That's a fundamental of Judaism. We know that. So how do we explain the Holocaust? How do we explain the homicide bombers in Jerusalem? God, I don't understand. It's a wonder to me. In our relationship with God, there's always going to be something which is wondrous, and we're not going to understand it. Guess what? If I spell Aleph backwards, you know what it spells? Let me spell it backwards for you. It's going to be tough today. I'm going to go back and forth. If I spell it backwards, it spells this word, Pella. What does Pella mean, Israelis? Pella. What does Pella mean? Wonderful. It's a wonder. A wonder. So we see in the letter Aleph itself, in the three letters, a description of what God's relationship to us is like as well. He is one, 100%. But there's always going to be an aspect about a Pella, something we're not going to understand. Okay? So this is a foundation. Whenever we see Aleph, Aleph is always going to relate to Hashem. Oneness. 26. Pella. No pronunciation. You know, it's interesting also, how do we say 1,000 in Hebrew? Elef. Exact same three letters. Aleph is one, Elef is 1,000. Question, God has an infinite imagination. Surely he could have thought of two words, one to mean one and one to mean 1,000. Why does God use the exact same word? Because God's trying to teach us something. He's trying to teach us that look at the world, and you look at the world, you're going to see many, many forces. What are you going to see? You're going to see the ocean, and you're going to see the sun, which is 93 million miles away. It's going to cause evaporation, and evaporation is going to go in the air, and it's going to cause condensation, and condensation is going to create clouds. Then wind is going to blow those clouds, and then gravity is going to pull the rainwater down, and from the soil is going to produce a mixture of the soil with the water to produce life. You might look at all these forces and think, wow, look at all the independent forces. God is teaching us, no. They're all a manifestation of His oneness. Many, many forces. Aleph, but it's all Aleph. Do you hear the consistency? So whenever we see that Aleph, my friends, it's always going to be in relationship to God. Now, let's take a look at the human being. First thing you have to know about a human being is what? Well, we have an Aleph. We have a divine spark. The image of God is inside of us. A human being has to know that. If you think you're just an animal, and you don't realize that you have a divine image, it's telling Elohim, you're never going to find any fulfillment in this world. Because the divine image needs satisfaction. It needs Torah, it needs mitzvah, it needs Shabbos. It needs a connection with its source. That's one thing about the human being. But look at the second part of the human being. Dam. What does dam mean? Dam means blood. Blood is the physical side of who we are. Now, why is blood the perfect description of the physical part of the human being? Question. How many miles of blood vessels do we have in our body if we were to line them up head to toe, head to toe, head to toe? Give me a guess. How many miles of blood vessels do we have in the human body? Doctors. How many? What do we say? 10 miles, 20 miles? 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles? Try this number right here. 33,000. We have enough blood vessels in our body, if we were to line them up head to toe, to circle the globe twice. Now, it's pretty good that God created in a way, Hashem created in a way that He compacts it into a 35-inch, okay, 36, whatever, which waistline. That's pretty good. But that's why blood is the perfect description of the physical side of who we are. Now, let me ask you a question. If a person thinks, look, I just want to be spiritual. I just want to meditate all day. I want to go off on a mountain and communicate with God. And I don't need friends, and I don't need family, and I don't need relationships, and I don't need delicious foods. I just want to be a spiritual being. I don't want to get married. I just want to go off somewhere and communicate with God my entire life. Do you think such a person is going to be happy? No. Maybe they've involved their Aleph, but they've forgotten the second side of who they are, which is the physical side, the Dam. So the first thing we see about the human being, just from these three letters, is exactly who we are. We're both spiritual and we're physical. And the challenge of life is to blend these two elements perfectly. To make it appear that the spiritual and the physical are the same thing. Like on Shabbat. You know, is Shabbat a physical day or a spiritual day? What is it? Well, it's a spiritual day, but we spend it eating. Right? So what is it? There's a beautiful blend of what we say is physical and spiritual. Now let me show you how deep this goes. Where do we get the blood from? Who gives us the blood of life? Well, we get it from who? We get it from our mother, our aim, and we get it from our father, our Av. Numerical value of Aleph is what? 1. Numerical value of Mem is 40, 41. Numerical value of Aleph, 1. Numerical of Beit, 2. It's 3. What do we see? 44. That's interesting. Dalet, numerical value, 4. Mem, numerical value, 40. 44. What a coincidence. The Dam is provided by who? Av V'Em. Numerical value, 44. But it makes sense. Why? Because if God took these three letters and formed the human being, obviously it would make sense that the source of the physical side will correspond with the providers of the physical side of who we are. Now, let me ask you a question. What is the job of the human being? What's our job? Are we supposed to stay the way we are? Are we supposed to grow? In fact, we're born with a lot of potential. Tremendous potential. But our job is to take ourselves and become something greater. Now, that's interesting. Does an animal have that challenge? An animal? Does your dog ever have to become more than just a dog? Does your cow ever have to become more than a cow? Right? When I was little, my mother used to say to me, don't eat with your fingers. Bring the food to your mouth, not the mouth to your food. I've never heard anyone say that to their dog. The dog does exactly what they're supposed to do. In fact, they do what they do. In fact, they serve God beautifully. Animals serve God beautifully. There's no resistance. There's no need to be anything but they are. That's interesting, by the way, because the word for an animal in Hebrew is a domesticated animal is a behema, which is an interesting word. Why? Because it means ba-ma. In it is what it is. Ba-ma. In it is what it is. That's all it is. No need to change. No need to grow. But look at the human being. If we flip around these letters a little bit, what do we see? If I were to put the Mem before the Aleph, what does this letter spell? What does this word spell? Ma. Od. What does Od mean in Hebrew? It means more. The job of the human being is to become Ma'od, more. The human being is created in potential. But our job is to make ourselves something greater, to refine ourselves, to perfect ourselves, to take the raw material God gave us and to give it back as a completely different creation. That's our job. Not to stand still, but to grow, to become mi'od. Now look how beautifully God expresses this. God created man from what? It's called Adam because he created him from the Adamah. Adamah. What does Adamah mean? Adamah means the earth. Adamah, the earth. Tell me something. What's the difference between the earth on 55th and Lexington and the same earth in some field out in Nebraska or out in Tashkent? What's the difference if you're going to do a chemical analysis of that dirt? Tell me the difference between the dirt on 57th and Lexington and the dirt out somewhere in Kansas. What's the difference between that dirt? It's the exact same thing. So why does the dirt on 57th and Lexington cost you $1 million a square foot? Location. And the land and the dirt out in Kansas or Nebraska cost you maybe, I don't know, $10 a square foot? What's the difference? The difference is what you choose to do with that dirt. If I take dirt and I build a skyscraper on it, or I use the dirt to create a beautiful field, it's worth something. But the dirt has no real value by itself. Its value is what I choose to do with it. Now that's interesting. That's why God created man from the Adamah. because Adamah is something that exists in potential, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. Now, it's very interesting. Look at this. I can vowel these 4 letters a little differently. And Israelis, watch this very closely. If I vowel it like this, Adameh, what does Adameh mean? Israelis? What? Adamah means earth, ground. What does Adameh mean? Listen carefully. In Hebrew, Adameh means I will be similar. I will resemble. Or I will be domeh. Domeh in Hebrew means similar. I will be domeh to the Aleph. I will resemble Hashem. I can either be dirt or I can resemble God. Right in the same 4 letters, it has both descriptions. God created man from the Adamah because the human being has free choice. You could choose to be dirt or you could choose to be Adameh, to resemble the Almighty. That's up to you. Do you hear how it works, everybody? Go a little deeper with it. What did I say? If I were to ask you a question, what are we? Are we bodies with souls, or are we souls with bodies? Am I a body that happens to have a soul, or am I a soul that needs a body in order to fulfill its purpose in life? What's the real me? What am I taking with me forever? We've all been to many funerals. What lies in the ground and decays? The body. What lives on forever? We happen to be souls that need bodies to accomplish our mission. The soul comes here for a specific purpose, to become greater, to give God back something more than He gave us, and thereby be worthy of the reward God wants to give us forever. But in order to fulfill that mission, I need a body. I have a body that has temptations and challenges, and passions and drives, and fights with my soul all the time. So that's what I need the body for. But the real me is what? Is the soul. True? That's the real me. Is the soul. Now let me show you something so beautiful about the word Adam. What did we say is the name for God? What's the name for God we use all the time? Well, don't say it, but I'm going to write it out. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. I don't want to pronounce it. We say Ado Shem, right? We say Hashem. I don't want to say the word, but in prayer we would pronounce it. Now, we could break up this word even further. Let's write it out. If I were to spell out a Yud, how would I write it? I'd write it like this. I'd write Yud, Vav, Dalet. If I were to spell out a Hey, I would write it like this. Hey, Aleph. If I were to write a Vav, I'd write it like this. Vav, Aleph, Vav. If I were to write a Hey, I'd write it like this. Hey, Aleph. Okay. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. I'm just spelling out the letter. That's the way you spell these letters. Now let's do a little numerical analysis of this, everybody. Yud is what? 10. Vav is what? 6. Dalet is what? Together it is 20. Hey is what? 5. Aleph is 6. Vav is what? 6. Aleph, Vav, together is 12 plus 1 is 13. Hey, 5. Aleph, 6. Add this together for me. 45. Now that's interesting. You know why? Let's take a look over here. Dalet is 4. Mem is 40. Aleph is? What's the numerical value of man? 45, which happens to be the exact same numerical value of God's name spelled out. What is the essence of the human being? The physical of who we are, or the fact that we're created in the image of God? Coincidence or design?